welcome to Let's Play Gran Turismo 3, episode 74. And it is now time for part 2 of the Professional Gran Turismo All-Stars, and where we are officially getting on with the 5th race up to the 7th race. And so, officially, if you may remember the previous segment, I was surprisingly and inadvertently able to win at Task Course. And, well, since we've now surpassed that, we can pretty much get back to real racing. And, obviously, I need to put the downforce back on because we're back to proper racing once again. And sure, why not? Yeah, that should do it. And so, let's now get back to real racing and race 5, which takes place at Apricot Hill. And where, obviously, even though my engine has pretty much been worn out up to this point, as you can tell by the red oil light, the truth is, mechanical failures do not happen in this game, so even though it does look pretty terminal, the truth is, mechanical failures do not play a part in championships, even then, of course, if the oil light may tell you otherwise, and we can pretty much keep ourselves going for the rest of this championship, regardless of how worn down this engine is looking, and we are pretty much less than 1.5 seconds now behind the Mazda, as of which I suspected he would of course take the lead, and also furthermore, I now have a lot more downforce on this car than I did at Task Course, simply because, well, as you would have anticipated, we are back to proper racing. Excuse me. And I just burped so abruptly. Excuse me. Although then again, I did just have a coffee before I started recording, so, you know, there was that. And also, it is actually raining outside my house, which, oddly enough, from a stereotypical standpoint, is basically the everyday weather you get in this country. Already my right side tyres are taking in some damage, but obviously, because these are the super slicks, I'm pretty confident in saying the least about my tyres managing to go the distance, and I am hopeful, to say the least, in saying this race will once again be another one of those tyre stories, considering that was exactly how I have won all the other races so far as a result of these AI pitting, and I am now slowly managing to close in on the Mazda 787V, as of which we are basically the only two competitors for this championship in terms of wins. I'm pretty sure the rotary powered Mazda will beat me in a race eventually at some point, because a clean sweep, I can assure you, will probably not be the case, even if it looks like I have swept the first 4 races up to this point. So, 1.7 seconds more or less the gap now, so I'm slowly closing in to that lead he currently has. Gap is now less than 2 seconds to the Mazda, because he appears to have better acceleration than I do, but obviously, because I have more downforce than he does, I'm ultimately able to get the... oh, shit. Yep, okay, there was no saving that. Okay, I should have known what was going to happen. Also, furthermore, my right side tyres were in the grass. I have no idea how I was able to hold on to second there, but I was steadily closing up, and then suddenly, just when I thought for sure the Mazda was checking up at the hairpin, in the end I had to fuck up the exit of the hairpin because oversteer. And I lost a total of about 10 seconds as a result of that. Or just under 10 seconds, I should say. But again, it's fine, because I will quickly manage to close up again through these sectors because of how I am a more beneficial driver towards Apricot Hill than these AI. So I'm once again starting to close the interval in spite of the error I made on the exit of the hairpin. I am steadily closing up to the Mazda once again, trying not to be too greedy with the throttle on the exit this time. I do manage to correct myself from the error, and I'm already 2 seconds up from the mistake I made on the previous lap, pretty much showcasing how much more pace my car has in comparison to the Mazda. And once I eventually manage to get down to it, I should be able to eventually pounce on the tyre troubles the Mazda will inevitably have, and that is exactly when I will take the lead. So 4 laps are now complete, the gap is now under 9 seconds to the Mazda, so I am steadily closing that interval to the Mazda as far as the eye can see. The gap is now only 8 seconds compared to when it was 11 seconds 2 laps ago, so I've already managed to gain 3 seconds from that error I made. Although fortunately, for me at least, it was an early race error, it was not a mid or late race error, because that would have been a lot more costly. But I'm hopeful, to say the least, in saying of course that with the AI not being quite as competent around Apricot Hill as myself, I'm hopeful in saying that will be precisely when I will manage to officially take the lead. Although I will not make any guarantees because I don't want to sound overconfident. And yep, I am definitely closing down that interval, because in the space of just 2 laps I have already found pretty much 4.5 seconds over the Mazda, and I am still continuing to slice that gap down like a hot knife through butter. I am steadily closing that interval, and as of which the Panos is now in the pits once again, as I would have expected him to be, although unfortunately he is of course mired back in the pack as a result of his tyre troubles, and obviously because I would imagine he's going to be pitting in on lap 10 as well, I would say that is probably the break that the Esperante was not needing, especially considering he is of course fighting for 5th position with the GT40. And meanwhile, as for the LM class, both the Mitsubishi FTO and the Honda S2000 are both basically engaged in a battle of their own, basically. Although, fortunately for me at least, I am steadily closing the interval now to the Mazda. Gap is now under 2.4 seconds, and the gap is literally closing lap after lap, proving of course that these more durable tyres are proving of course to hopefully be the winning tyres. And the Mazda looks like it got loose there on the exit. As we head under the Dunlop tyre bridge, I am getting closer and closer every lap, heading through the hairpin once again, shifting into 3rd gear so I don't get a snap of oversteer. And we are now side by side off the corner exit very briefly, and trying to go for a manoeuvre down the inside. He tries to throw the block, but I do of course manage to to slot myself in the perfect position to take the lead. Got a little skittish there on the grass, but managing to officially take control of the race lead, officially, as it has taken me 7 laps to take the lead. And the Mazda tries to slot down the outside, but he also steps on the brakes because he will not get the manoeuvre done. 1.1 seconds is now the interval to the Mazda. Had to brake heavily there so that I wouldn't spin the car again. Unfortunately, I was able to benefit from that. The Mazda slides up high on the rear end. He got a snap of oversteer. We are now side by side as we head into the hairpin under the Dunlop Bridge, shifting into 3rd gear in the middle of the corner so I don't spin the car again. I was very fortunate to slam on the brakes and save it once I got loose on the curbs. I was able to tighten myself up, and officially I am now back up into the lead once again, as of which both myself and the Mazda, as it stands at the moment, are exchanging positions. I'm not going to allow the Mazda to easily take back the position. He brakes early, I brake later, as we now head through the first 2 corners once again, and through the S's now, as I am now officially 1 second clear of the Mazda, trying to hold on to this car for dear life, and hopefully for victory as well. I have managed to overcome the effects of adversity, and even though my tyres are starting to show signs of minor wear, the truth is, these tyres, I'm pretty confident, will be durable enough to make it to the end of the race. Without being shot, as of which I do now possess the lead, and I am now ultimately well clear of the Mazda, who now comes into the pits after 9 laps. And as long as I do not spin the car again, that has ultimately handed the race win over to me by default of tyre longevity. Got a little bit of oversteer there, but managing to prevent the car from spinning in spite of my rear end being very twitchy at the present time. And the gap is now 21.8 seconds to the Mazda. And as long as I can keep it clean and not make the mistakes I've been making previously in this race, then hopefully I should be on course to hopefully winning this race, and also making it officially my 5th win in 5 races. So the gap is indeed continuing to increase, as I would have expected it to do so, and ultimately it now looks as though I'm going to overlap the 2 V8s in this race, as of which I believe it is the Esperante that is behind the GT40 as a result of his pit stop, and I'm pretty certain that I will manage to overlap both of these guys before the end of this race, possibly even the 2 cars in the LM class as well. It looks as though I could very well be a contender for overlapping both of these guys before this race is out. I am steadily continuing to increase the gap over as of which I am steadily continuing to increase the gap over the Mazda, and I managed to overlap both of these guys as the Pagani now comes into the pits once again after a 5-lap stint, as of which obviously this I would suspect will probably be his second and final pit stop, and as a result I would imagine he will probably drop to the back of the pack. And the FTO I've also noticed is amongst the back of the pack as well, which means of course that it has to be the GT40 that's fighting for third position with the S2000. And meanwhile, for me, at the very least, I can say I'm looking more than comfortable enough to taking win number 5 in the professional GT All-Stars in my Pagani Zonda race car. And officially, both the S2000 and the GT40 are now in the pits for what will presumably be their first and only stop, I would think, and officially I overlap both of these guys, which means of course that once again I am going to ultimately win most of these races by overlapping almost the entire field, because we only have one prototype that we need to deal with. And overall, even though I did kind of cheat to make this easier on myself by constantly reloading the game to making it so I would not have to compete against all 3 of the heavy hitters, ultimately tyre longevity has ultimately been the deciding factor of pretty much all of these races, and that is exactly what has managed to get me over to victory through the first 4 races. Even though obviously I did have to go with a minimum downforce setting for test course, and I did also increase the top speed slightly, but obviously that doesn't matter anymore because I am now well clear of the Mazda, and even though his tyres are starting to officially warm up to this point, ultimately the only thing I can really say for sure is that officially I am well clear of the rest of these AI. So 26.3 seconds is now the margin to the Mazda. I am continuing to gradually increase that interval pretty much lap after lap, and as of which we are now heading towards the final lap of race 5 in this race, and just merely cutting the first part of that final chicane, even though it was not an intentional corner cutting. Anyways, final lap of race 5 in the professional Gran Turismo All-Stars. I am looking more than likely to potentially winning this race and making it 5 wins in a row for the Zonda, as of which I am nearly half a minute clear of the Mazda up to this point, who has managed to overlap both the Pagani and the Mitsubishi up to this point, and I am nearly half a minute clear of the Mazda up to this point, and as a result of his tyre stop, I'm starting to notice a little wear on the right front tyre, but fortunately it is not going to be enough to prevent me from winning this race, And even though I could pit now, the truth is there is no point. And officially, it is going to be 5 out of 5 victories to the Pagani Zonda. Or the number 24 Pagani Zonda, I should say. And so, let's now wait for everyone else to finish, which I would imagine is not going to be long. And what do you know, the FTO had to pit right before he came to the finish line. Anyways, both myself and the Mazda have once again overlapped the entire field, or pretty much most of the field, as of which it is officially 5 wins in a row to the number 24 Pagani Zonda, ahead of the Mazda 78-7B, who is yet to win a race. And as for the rest of the field, well, they're pretty much lurking at the moment, with probably no chance of winning up to this point. So a perfect 50 points to me and 30 points to the Mazda. The S2K is in 3rd, followed by the FTO. The Esperante is in 5th, and the GT40 is starting to move himself back up into the fight as a result of that 4th placed finish. And officially, we can now move onwards to race number 6. Alright, so we are halfway through the Professional GT All-Stars. And let's now get on, of course, with race number 6, and where, since I would imagine speed is not going to be a factor, I'm just going to return to my default setting on the transmission. Anyways, it's time for Rome. So here we are then, the 6th race of '10 in this championship, and officially I have returned back to my default transmission settings, and once again my TV is starting to do the weird shit once again. Hoping of course I will not be doing that for too long, and officially, as I expected, I am already back up into the 2nd position and already closing in on the Mazda, proving of course why exactly I am more superior than this AI in terms of competence around this circuit. I've kept my downforce settings the same because I figured it was not necessary to do anything further with those, and I am only hoping that my TV does not suddenly unplug itself from the amount of glitching it is doing right now. Yeah, don't ask me why my TV is just doing the weird shit at the moment. The only comment I can really make about that is, well, it just happens to be that. I've literally got nothing else to say in response. I do apologise if it does if it does tamper with the experience of what you're meant to be seeing on my YouTube channel. And even though I have tried to solve this issue, the truth is, at the moment it's an issue I cannot resolve, unfortunately. It's an issue which I cannot resolve, unfortunately. And diving down the inside of the Mazda, and officially the Mazda is trying his hardest to go for the lead, as of which he does have the superior straight line speed. No point in fighting him. It's only the 2nd lap. Might as well let him have this one until he makes a mistake. I'm not going to fight him too much in the early stages because it's not necessary. It is a 15 lap race. I'm pretty certain, to say the least, and saying that once the opportunity does manage to present itself, that is when I will officially manage to take the lead. As long as I don't fuck this up too much. So the second is the interval to the Mazda now, here at Rome. I am pretty certain I will manage to win in front of the home fans once the opportunity presents itself. And even though I did have the stronger corner exit, the truth is the Mazda was more superior in terms of straight line speed. I'm going to wait until the opportunity presents itself like I should. And officially, looks as though the opportunity is starting, of course, to present itself. As of which my TV is still continuing to do weird shit because it's an old HD TV. And officially, I am now just over a second behind the Mazda up to this point. I'm not going to fight him too much for the race lead. Trying to keep it as clean as I can as we head through the second section of Colosseum Corners. And the Mazda slides, so do I. Trying to see if there's an opening. I almost lost it as my left side tyres clipped the pavement. And officially, my lap times are more or less the low 118s at the moment. Just basically trying to stay behind the Mazda for as long as I can before he pits. Then, oh fuck me. And then once he does manage to pit, that is officially the opening I will need to subsequently take control of the race lead. So, diving down the inside, the Mazda does the old switcheroo and also makes contact with me as a result. I dive down the inside. He tries to force me wide. I'm not giving him the space. I shut the door on him and officially I managed to take the lead very briefly before he suddenly fights back, heading down the front stretch. And diving down the inside, also having to trade some paint there with the Mazda as a result. Had to get really aggressive there to lead that lap, as of which the Mazda has led every lap up to this point and had to wait patiently for the opportunity to present itself. And even though the Mazda is trying to get the manoeuvre done, I leave him hung out to dry on the outside, and officially I do manage to put myself in the position of, oh fuck me, ultimately taking control of the lead. So it looks as though the GT40 is going to see himself as a possible contender for the remainder of this championship, after having probably the worst start of anyone up to this point in the championship, as of which I would imagine he'll probably be fighting with the S2000 for potentially third position in the championship, and officially I have now separated myself from the Mazda as a result of my cornering speeds giving me the advantage. We are 6 laps into this race. I'm now pretty much well clear of the Mazda up to this point from when I took the lead, and it does look as though this will officially be yet another victory, going of course to the Zonda, and if it's possible it will also hopefully be a victory that will manage to move me up in the standings also. So the Pagani, as I expected, is once again in the pits, as he has been for pretty much every race in this championship, basically pitting before the halfway point and then doing another pit stop later on. However, I do not need to make a pit stop because my tyres up to this point, as I have proved at Apricot Hill, are durable enough to make it to the end regardless of how much of a pounding they're taking on the track surface, whether it be abrasive or not. And officially I am now pretty much well clear of the Mazda after 7 laps have been completed in this race. Oh, fuck me. I was way too late on the brakes. That first right-hander. And managing to comfortably control myself. And lost a little bit of time there through those final 2 corners, and yep. Okay, the mistakes are starting to set in because I'm not concentrating. Just because I'm leading the race doesn't mean I have to fuck up every turn on the course, regardless of how big the margin is to the Mazda. It's unnecessary. I've started to avoid my mistakes once again. And getting twitchy on the rear end, as I thought I would be when I got through the corner. And keeping it in 3rd gear through here, and I do now set a new PB at the end of the 9th lap, and starting lap 10, my car, as I expected, is now becoming very loose on this somewhat worn set of boots. But officially it does not matter too much to me, because I'm pretty certain, to say the least, in saying that I will manage to, hopefully, take home the win without any major problems. Oh, fuck me. And already I I am now coming up to overlapping the back of the pack. So the Honda S2000 up to this point is pretty much well clear of everyone else. The GT40 is left hung out to dry up to this point, and officially at the end of 10 laps I am now officially well clear of the Mazda, who is still yet to pit. And at the end of the 10th lap he does now come into the pits as a result of tyre wear becoming an issue, and I hit the back of the FTO whilst overlapping him. I do now manage to take over the... no wait. I do now manage to overlap all three of these guys, and I'm pretty certain the S2K will not be far from the overlapping process, as of which I can now confirm tyre longevity has officially once again put me well clear of the Mazda. Gap is now 31.2 seconds as a result of that pit stop. He finally manages to come into the pits after 10 laps on that first stint, and officially it does look as though my tyres are starting, of course, to witness some wearage, even though I don't think that's a word. Yep, okay. Oversteer is starting to take over the control of my ride. Anyways, I can pretty much safely say I am now well clear of the Mazda up to this point. Still have 3 laps to go following this one, and I am slowly closing in on the S2K, looking very much certain to overlapping him once again. The rear end up to this point is getting very twitchy up to this point. 3 laps to go now here in Rome. I am hopeful in saying that this will officially be the lap where the money is earned, and I can now confirm I am pretty much well clear of the Mazda, as of which I have managed to come through perseverance, and for the majority of this race, since I did manage to patiently take the lead away from the Mazda, ultimately I can now say the win is more or less guaranteed up to this point. Unless something goes wrong in a big way, I'm pretty certain the win by now, even if I do make a pit stop up to this point, is probably guaranteed. And had to brake a little harder than I usually would through that right Honda, even though it doesn't matter because the S2K is once again in the pits, and as I expected here in Rome, once these AI started to pit, I effectively overlapped most of the field. And so the Pagani once again is in the pits. I'm now officially on the penultimate lap here in Rome, lap 14 of 15. As I head through these 2 quirky right-handers. I can pretty much confirm up to this point I probably will win this race hands down, even though my tyres up to this point in the race are starting to show signs of wear on the left hand side, but I'm pretty confident to say the least in saying that I will make it up to the end of the race as I now start the final lap here in Rome. One more time around as I head under the palm trees, and officially I can now say I am pretty much way the fuck ahead of everyone else by default of tyre strategy. Because pit stops. Also because ultimately I have the most durable tyres. Which you pretty much inevitably need to win any professional... Oh, fuck me. Almost over sure I lost it there. If there was any mistake that was going to come besides the first lap, it had to be on the final lap. Fortunately, I was able to catch it before it became an issue. These tyres are pretty much well past their best up to this point. Although it doesn't matter now because I'm still going to win the race. So there we go. It is officially 6 wins in 6 races over the rest of the field. And let's now wait for everyone else to finish. And what a time for the GT40 to make a pit stop. Even though obviously both myself and the Mazda have virtually overlapped the entire field. Even though the Mazda didn't overlap the Honda, but there we go. Officially 6 races are down and I have pretty much won every one of them up to this point. Even though I would imagine by the time we get into the closing stages of this championship, I would imagine that's probably when the 7H7B will probably have the edge. But at the moment, it is a perfect string of wins for me and a perfect string of second places to the Mazda. The Honda looks like he is going to hold on to 3rd position ahead of the FTO. The Pagani at the moment is still holding on to 4th position. And as for the GT40, well, it doesn't look like he's going to be one of the major players, unfortunately. But officially, what I am now going to do is save the replay. And officially, let's head over to the 7th race of the Professional GT All-Stars, which takes place at Seattle Reverse. Let's get this over with, and hopefully we will not have too much trouble with these AI. And it is go for race number 7 in the Professional GT All-Stars, already approaching the death chicane, as of which the FTO has already fallen victim to that final chicane. Well, it's probably the first chicane because this is the reverse course, and accidentally forced the Aspirante into the wall there, but obviously my car very loose on cold tyres at the moment, as of which I suspect, of course, that was the cause for the oversteer. I have already manoeuvred my way up into the 4th position. I would imagine this will be another one of those races where the Mazda probably is going to be better than me, and suddenly everyone is getting sketchy already up to this point. The assertiveness is already starting to become careless amongst these AI, as of which that's more or less what I would have expected. currently 3.6 seconds behind the Mazda, as of which I would have imagined this would be the likely circuit where my win streak would come to a potential end if the Mazda has that much pace. It was already 3.6 seconds clear of me by the time I made it up to second position. And it really doesn't matter too much because I've already won the first 6 races up to this point in the championship anyway, and I would imagine if tyre degradation does play a part in this race like it has done for the previous 6 races, then that is exactly when I could have the perfect opportunity of closing up, and apparently at the moment I still cannot drive this thing, because apparent as it might be, my front tyres are still cold. Alright, as we now head through this sharp right-hander. And at the moment I still cannot drive this thing. And officially, as I would have anticipated, this probably was going to be one of the Mazda's stronger circuits in comparison to me, as of which I'm still having trouble trying to get to grips with the track as a result of my tyres not warming up properly. And already the Panos is right behind me. He is not willing to give an inch, and it looks as though the Mazda might have hit the wall there, but I doubt that to very much be the case, because the Mazda up to this point is very much the dominator of this race up to this point, and unless he makes a pit stop, I'm doubtless in saying that I will probably not win this race, because this is more or less what will probably happen at midfield. Or, correction, what did happen at midfield, because ultimately the Mazda proved of course to be the fastest car out on track, but again, because he didn't have the superior tyres at the end of the day, that was exactly how I was able to narrowly fend off the Mazda overall. And it looks as though this race could more or less be the case, and where I could manage to break through with the perseverance. This car is still not liking the twitchiness the rear end is giving me. Trying my hardest to not wreck up to this point, even though I am basically wrecking every lap, but somehow still not causing any terminal damage to the suspension or the chassis, because obviously vehicle damage is not a thing in this game. As of which vehicle damage would not officially be a thing in the GT series until Gran Turismo 5, which was ultimately released 9 years after this one. And I have managed to break away from the rest of the field up to this point. And it looks as though, up to this point, I could very well be closing in on the Mazda now. So, looks as though tyre wear is starting to become an issue. This car is starting to get some grip, even though I'm still beginning, of course, to slide here and there every lap because of how twitchy this rear end is being. Also had to short shift up into 5th so that I would not get airborne and then crash into the guardrail. Fortunately, however, I did not. And it looks as though tyre wear is starting to become an issue for the Mazda, as of which I have now closed up on this lap, And ultimately, if there is one thing I can confirm for sure up to this point, is that officially it looks as though I could very well be in contention by pure proximity of potentially taking over the race lead once the opportunity presents itself. I've really got to keep it clean up to this point. Cannot afford any major fuck-ups up to this point in the race, as of which obviously I've basically been driving like shit all race long up to this point, and ultimately the gap is now under 5 seconds, so tyre wear definitely proving, of course, to be an issue. Delamination on the tyres of that Felix Wankel rotary, over that Wankel rotary powered prototype, are starting to affect it severely, and I would imagine it's only a matter of time until he pits. So tyre degradation, just as I anticipated, becoming the main trouble for the 7H7B once again. Looks as though the Zonda will manage to emerge once again, as of which I am literally slicing down that interval now. As of which, over these past 2 laps, I have already managed to gain nearly 5 seconds from when I almost thought for sure up to that point the Mazda got me beat. But apparently not the case once tyre wear started to kick in for the Mazda, and it looks as though once again I am probably going to make this potentially 7 wins in a row in the first 7 races. Just trying to hold my breath in, hoping that I do not throw this one away. Very much being the strategic brain, and yep, okay. Okay. As I anticipated, I too have become a victim to the death chicane, as of which I had a feeling it was probably going to catch me out sooner or later. And as I anticipated, the number 4 Panos is now once again in the pits. As of which he's basically been hitting in up to this point in the race pretty much every lap. And already short shifting up into 5th gear so I don't over rev the motor on the jumps. And as long as I don't fuck this up under the same circumstances I fucked up the previous time, hopefully I will eventually manage to take the lead. Because apparently, regardless of how many laps I've done on both the forward and the reverse course, I still cannot drive the fucking reverse course, as much as I'm trying. And I almost thought for sure I lost it. Unfortunately, however, the delaminating tyres of the Mazda have pretty much kept my hopes alive. I'm hopeful, to say the least, that as long as I don't bottle this again, that I will manage to hopefully make a bid for the race lead and see how long it is before the Mazda pits. And of course, if I am really going to make my best shots for the lead now, I have got to get the hammer down. So heading through the bus stop section once again, and officially, after nearly 9 laps in this race, this could be the opportunity I've been searching for all race long to eventually take the lead. Had to get on the inside of the Mazda there, and my right side literally got airborne there, but I did manage to keep it straight, and I was definitely weaving there. Even though obviously I was not doing it on purpose, it was because of my fucking oversteer. And the Mazda has managed to survive yet another lap. And, oh, fuck me. Okay, I think I'm going to shut the fuck up now, because everything I'm trying is failing. And the answer might be, I just cannot get the fucking pass done to just take the lead. I'm just not concentrating. Okay, I'm going to shut the fuck up now and wait until I've actually got the lead to speak again. Because I just had to open my mouth hole and make myself lose the fucking momentum that I've gained up to this point. So yeah, I'm just gonna keep my mouth shut until I've taken the lead now, because this excessive talking is clearly not helping me. Fuck. Why could I not drive this circuit? Okay, I think I might have the lead this time. Oh, so that's how you want to fucking play, huh? It isn't too late for me, dumbass. You ain't gonna let me. You ain't gonna get this win without a fight, you know. Ugh, why can I not get anything fucking right on this circuit? Why do I have to keep fucking myself? Why? For fuck's sake. actually need to brake for the chicane this time, if I'm going to get it right. Yeah, that's about as good as I'm going to get it, anyways. Both myself and the 7870 are trading paint equally up to this point, as of which even on worn tyres, the Mazda is proving of course to be the more superior car. Etiata reverse, proving he has more superiority down the straights and the corner entries. Meanwhile, I am able to be more superior on the corner exits, which is basically the only thing that, in spite of pretty much all of the fucking crashing I've done throughout this race, is basically the only thing that has actually managed to keep me alive. That has actually managed to keep my chances of winning this race alive. And oddly enough, up to this point, I still cannot believe that in spite of how many times I've wrecked on this circuit already, that I am still in the fight for the race win. And even to me, that is truly remarkable. Because I did not think I was going to last this long. And looks as though the Mazda's worn tyres have officially started to come to him, as of which my lap times compared to my best lap time by now are well off the pace. And officially, after 13 laps, I do now overlap the FTO. Up to this point, and what I need to do now is just not be victimised by the invisible walls. So, 12 laps are now done, and officially, as a result of the Mazda pitting, it has left me out in the open to lead once again, and hopefully, if it's possible, to win my 7th race of the championship overall. And the GT40 was trying to stay on the lead lap, but unfortunately, since I was already committed to the inside line, he unfortunately was not giving the interval. And also, I've just noticed my door is wide open. Anyways, by default of tyre strategy, I have once again managed to keep myself in this fight, and ultimately, up to this point, I am still amazed of how exactly I've managed to keep myself in the fight, regardless of how near impossible it has been to actually keep this thing under control. But somehow I have managed to tame this bull, and oddly enough, it has not taken the horns somehow. Oh, fuck me. Okay. Even though my tyres are probably worn down enough by now, I still cannot fucking drive this thing. Regardless of how much I am actually attempting to keep this thing under control, the truth is, I still cannot drive it around this circuit. But somehow, I've still managed to keep it under control, even up to the later stages of this race. Unfortunately, for me at least, this is now the final lap. And I am still not concentrating. Okay, I think I'm just going to keep my mouth shut until I've made it to the finish line, because this is the perfect strategy I have for losing this race, because because that is pretty much how much incompetence I have with a rear-wheel drive car. Okay, I'm sorry, me. I am sorry for not keeping my mouth shut during the fucking line. Shit. Anyways, the S2K is now in the pits, and since I would imagine he's probably gonna come out before I overlap him, or maybe not, I'm just gonna do that. I think he just crossed the line before he made it there, and yep, he did. Anyways, mercifully, that race is over. And since I've now got to wait for the Honda to finish this race, let's do that. Yay! The S2K has finally finished, and as of which, for only the second time in this championship, he officially finished on the lead lap. God, that fucking drive was terrible. But somehow in the end, I still won the race because of my durable tyres. And in spite of how much crashing I did throughout that race, somehow I still managed to win it. Anyways, 7 race wins overall, and whoever the hell that is behind me, he just literally punted me. And championship is more or less secure by now. As of which, all I really need now is basically another 6 points, and then the championship is basically mine. Because I am 28 points clear of the Mazda, and officially, since I've managed to win every race up to this point, I would imagine these final 3 races are going to be where the Mazda probably will get the advantage, but fortunately, since I have managed to win all 6 races up to this point, ultimately, I am officially pretty much the champion. And so, that was part 2 of the Professional Gran Turismo All-Stars, and next time, we shall be doing part 3, from the 8th race to the final race. Stay tuned for more of GT3.